So welcome back. Um, I think we carry on from where we left last. Last time we discussed things to do with tables, images, lists. I also think we discussed things to do with comments and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
today, base 03,
yeah,
I create a new file here like that. Then we want to discuss forms. So I'll put doc type. By the way, you don't have to type the entire doc type. If you just put exclamation mark, then you press enter, it will automatically
yeah,
fill in it for you. So it will fill the doc type, it will fill HTML, it will put head, then it will put title, then of course it will close head and it will put body. So here I can say we want to talk about forms. So today we want to discuss forms. Okay.
yeah,
So forms are basically the tools that we use to capture data from the user. So most of the time, we need to capture data from the user. Most of the things that you have seen us do is to display data to the user. But sometimes we also need to capture data from the user for purposes of processing that data. Okay? So that's where
yeah.
forms now come in. So I'll put a comment here and I'll say forms are used to capture data from the user for processing purposes. Okay. Now, when it
Yeah.
comes to a form, just like any other HTML tag, we'll put the form tag. Now, the form has two properties. One of them is the method, which is how the form is going to be processed. Okay. So there are two
Yeah.
methods. We have a method called get and a method called post. So get is the default method. We're going to come back to this method later. So the default method is get. Then it also has an um, action method. Action is where the form is supposed to be processed. So if I put a pound symbol, it means that the form is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be processed on the current page. So those two attributes are very important. I will omit them for now. So we're just going to focus on the form element like this. So when you put form, you can see default it asks you for an action. You put tab, then now you can put the form elements down here. So the form can be made up of several elements, and I want us to discuss this element. So the first element we can put on a form is called an input element. So form has an input element. Input elements allows us to capture data from the user, and we have different types of input elements. The first one that we have is actually called a text, which is the default. So the first one is text, which is the default. So how do you draw a text? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go live on this page. Then I'm going to come back to Visual Studio Code. Then I'm going to put them side by side like that. Okay. So the page doesn't have anything yet. So here, what we're going to do is we are going to have here open tag. Then we put input. Then we need to put the type of the input. In this case, we are putting an input of type text. Okay. Then we
Yeah.
might need to give it an ID. So maybe say username. So that in future, if you want to write JavaScript code, we use the ID.
Yeah.
We can also give it a name, username. So I'll just collapse this, put this one inside the curly braces, inside the normal brackets like that. So we can have something like this. So if I say input type text, you can see it has actually put a text here, and I can now be able to type here, my name is. Okay, so this is actually how an
Yeah.
input is. But of course, we usually use labels with input so that we show the user what it's all about. So I can have a label here. So labels are supposed to mark for us inputs, and they will, as we're going to see later on, they also provide for us a place where we can be able to click things that are smaller. Like a checkbox or radio button is a bit small, so the label will give us a way of being able to access the components by just clicking on the label. But for now, let's just use the label for purposes of showing us the coordinates. So I'll say here label, then then I'll put the ID of the item that I'm targeting, which is this case is username. So that this label now belongs to the username. What will happen is a screen reader will know that there's a label here and it is attached to this particular input. Okay, so that's the
Yeah.
other purpose that the label is used for. So I can simply say here username like that. So you'll see here now I have username and now I have a place I can type my username, which is something like Richard, right? So
Yeah.
there's a label,
Yeah.
then there is an input. Now,
I
this
mean,
input can also have something called a placeholder. Placeholder is the text that's going to be written inside this input, just in case the user does not provide anything here. So I can simply say here, enter your name. So inside the placeholder, enter your username or mobile number. So if I do that, you'll be able to see that here I have enter your username or mobile number. So as I start typing, then it goes away. Okay.
yeah.
Here I can say username or mobile number. Okay.
Yes.
So in short, I'm just telling the user you can either provide username or your mobile number. So if I put my mobile number, then naturally you can see it goes away. If there's nothing on the text box, then it tells me what I need to put there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
the other thing I have, you see, if I click there is this field that is, there are this data that's coming over. These are things that I have tried to do before. So I have had other fields called username, and these are the values that have been attached to this field. If I don't want to see this memory over here, what I'll do here, I'll come and turn autocomplete to off. So what I can do here is input type text. So you can put these things in different lines. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
So autocomplete here, I'll simply say off. So when I put autocomplete is off, when I come here, you can now see it does not have memory of what was shown
oh,
before. Okay. So again,
yes.
depending on the behavior that you are looking for, you can be able to set the placeholder. You can also turn off autocomplete. So it's a label that targets username, which is the ID of this other field over here. This is an attribute username. Then I give the label that I want. Then I come and put an input. I specify the type of input. We say there are different types of input. I'm going to start with text. Then you can give it an ID. You can give it a name. Then you can give it a placeholder. All these are attributes. So I can put them in separate lines so that you're able to see that to be separately. Though as you're typing them, you can just type them on the same line like that. So we have a text attribute, an ID attribute, a name attribute, a placeholder, and autocomplete. And each and every one of them is performing a very specific task. This one is telling us the type of text. This one is defining it by its ID. So this is the unique identifier. This is a common name. This is a placeholder, what is displayed here if there's no text. And then this one means if I type values on this text before, don't remind me those values. Simply allow the user to enter the data afresh.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
You want to try that out?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes.
Okay.
Ready? Victor, you ready?
I'm almost done.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one type of input called text. This is the default, by the way. This is the default. So even if I was to leave it out, it will just default into a text as you can see over here. Okay.
Uh,
So even if I
yeah.
put something it didn't understand, something like input, like I don't know, it will still be able to default back to a text. Okay.
Yeah.
So every time you put, you either leave it out or you put something that it does not know, it will default to text. But it's good practice to usually just define it as text like that. Okay. Now you can
Yeah.
have multiple text, like I can have another label here, and I'll say here first name. We say first name. Then I put an input. I'll put type text. I'm just using a shorthand. Then I'll give it an ID of first name. Then I'll give it a name of first name. So if I do that, you see I have another here, say Richard. Right, so I can put, so well, I can put a break here, just so that they are on top of one another. Or I can put a
Mm.
paragraph so that now there's space in between them. Okay. So
Yeah.
I can put multiple text depending on how much data I want to capture. Now, the other type of input that I have is password. So the other type of input I have is password. So you remember, you see that if I was supposed to give you something like label here, and I say your password, and I put password here, then I come here and I'll say, well, probably maybe I can put a paragraph here. Then I put here an input of a text. Then I call it your password. The only problem with this is if I start typing my password here, you can see the password is readable. I don't want this password to be readable, okay? So I want the
Yeah.
password to be replaced by other characters. So what I do, instead of saying input of type text, I simply say an input of type password.
Password.
So if I put password, then I start typing my password. Now you can see I'm not able to see the password.
Yeah.
Okay? So then I
Mm.
can say confirm your password. Confirm. Sorry. So here I can say input password. Like that. Of course, I can put a break here so it appears on the next page. So you can see I have my password here. Then I can have my confirm password here, and that's okay. So the fact there are inputs, I can still go ahead
Mm.
and put a placeholder here. I'll say use complex password. Something like that. So you can say here, I'm telling you, use complex password. Then here I can come and say, uh, so you can see the placeholder can make you also guide the user on the things that they need to do as you're capturing the data. So
Yeah.
here I can have them um, use a complex password like at test capital P password, something like that. Then once they're done, they
Yeah.
can repeat that password down here. Okay. So that is
Yeah.
the second category of input that you can use. So the first one was text. The next one is password. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to try that out, or I can just continue?
Let me try it and then I'll tell you.
Okay, no problem.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Good. So now the other type of input we have, the third one is number. You might also want to capture numbers.
Yeah.
And the number is common. I want to ask you how many pieces of this item do you want, right?
Yeah.
I can put here label items needed. How many pieces? Or I can just say pieces required. Assuming I'm doing an order system, so I'm asking you for the pieces required. So here I can put an input of type number. Then I can say items needed. Then the same items needed can form part of my element. So here I can put a paragraph just so it is creating a break. Then from here I can put a placeholder. Pieces like that. So when I come here, you can see I cannot type anything that is. I'm entering letters of the alphabet. E is accessible because E is exponential, which is a number, but any other letter of the alphabet is not acceptable. But if I type numbers like this, you can see now numbers can be accepted. Okay. So
Oh,
depending on the type of data that you want to capture, if you want to capture numbers, then you use the number input type. So input type here you can see it's number. Previously we started with text, then we went to password. Now we are at number. And even when it comes to mobile phone numbers, I can simply ask you for your mobile phone number right from here. So I'll just copy this. Then I'll say mobile phone. Then I can put number. Then here will be something of the sort. Of course, here I can put a paragraph just to break it up so that now there too. So mobile is your mobile phone number. I'll say start with 254. So maybe if I want your number, I'll simply start with 254, or I can put example. Something of the sort. So I'll give you the format that I expect you to type the number in. So when I come here, I cannot type plus. Well, I can type plus and I can type minus because those are numbers, but then I can type the numbers like that. If I remove the number, then it also just gives me the format that I might want to have on it. Okay,
Yes.
so that is the third type of data, which is number. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So now let's discuss another form component. The fourth one is supposed to be date. So you might also want to capture dates. Like I want to ask somebody what is your date of birth. Okay. So I'll put a
Yeah.
paragraph here and I'll put number 4, date. So I can put here a label for date of birth. Then I say here date of birth. Then I can put here an input of type date, then date of birth, then name also date of birth, like that. So you see now, as you can see, it has given me a date here. So when I click on this, it just allows me to pick a date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So you can see I don't need to design all these things from the ground up. I can have an input that allows me to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be purchase date, it could be when do you want it delivered, when are you booking the when are you scheduling the appointment, any sort of date that you might want to put, you can specify that. By the way, you can put both date and time. So if you
Yeah.
put time, it will allow you to select time. So we have date time, then you have also date time. Well, maybe I'll need to put date and time separately, but there's another library that allows me to put date and time. I can see the normal HTML does not allow me to incorporate date and time together. Okay? But it's up
Yeah.
in practice to put date and time in one single input. Okay?
Yes.
So that is date and time. Do you really need to try that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
That's okay, yeah?
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
All right. So besides date, we can also put email. We can also have an input that accepts email. If I wanted to, why this is important is sometimes you don't want to do a lot of validation. So
Yeah.
we just put the correct input, then the browser will validate for us. So I can put here
Okay.
label, email address, email address. So I can put here an input of type email with an ID of email address with a label of email address. Then you can put a placeholder, something like EG 123 youth at kenya.ac.ke, or I can say student, something like that. So if I do that, you can see now I have an email here. What will happen is, of course, you can see it's remembering all the emails. So if I wanted to change that behavior again, let me just put them on separate lines here so that you can see all of them. The browser is not concerned with the white space, so it doesn't matter how you type it so long as you complete it properly.
Yeah.
So if I wanted, what did I want to do? Uh, I've forgotten. Yeah, I wanted to remove. I wanted to remove this history, so I can come here and say autocomplete.
Oh,
Autocomplete is off. So when autocomplete is off, it means it's not going to remember the older emails. Okay, that's how you
yeah.
tune these behaviors so that now your output is also not messed up with. Okay, so when you're filling in the
Yeah.
form, it doesn't matter if somebody tried to fill in an email before, you want to capture it afresh. Okay,
Yes.
okay, you can try that out.
Good. I think it's okay.
That's okay, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other type of input that we can have is color.
Yeah.
So color. So input number 6, sorry, is color. So you can ask users to pick color. Say, for example, we are adding a motor vehicle, right? So I can ask you, what is the color
Yeah.
of your vehicle, isn't it? So
Yeah.
here I can put a paragraph. Then I can say, please put here. I can simply put here label vehicle color. Okay.
Yeah.
Then here label is vehicle color. Then when I'm putting my input here, I'll put my input. The type is going to be color, and the color is the US spelling, not the UK spelling. The US spelling like that color. Eh?
Yeah.
Then vehicle color. So you can see now by default it picks black, but if I click on this, I can pick any color that I want. Okay, I
Yeah.
can pick greenish. I can pick a darker shade of green, lighter shade of green. However it is. So that allows me to be able to pick colors. I can pick my theme color. What is my, if I'm doing a user interface that can be customizable, what color of font do you want? Those kinds of things, right? What kind of background do you want? That's that kind of thing. So when it comes to selecting color from a user, then this is how you pick the colors. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to put.
That's okay, right? Now, the other type of input we have is range. So we have the range inputs. So the range allows me to select between two values. Say, for example, we're doing a motor vehicle website, and you're looking for a motor vehicle. I'll ask you, what is the budget? How much do you want to spend on the vehicle? There's the minimum side and there is the maximum side, isn't it? So when I want to
Yeah.
ask you that kind of a question, then I would use a range input. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see how that works out. So I'll ask you label uh, budget. So your budget for the vehicle. Let me just ask you your budget, right? So here
Yeah.
I can put an input of type range, then I'll give it a budget. Now the range has two values, minimum and maximum. So I can put here minimum is maybe say something like 50K,
Yeah.
and then 50 in thousands, and then maximum is 500, something of the sort, right? Something like that. So you can see now I have minimum here is 50 and I can go all the way to 100. So what I could do here is I can put another paragraph Then I can put here 50K. Then I put the other side 100K, something like that. Okay. Then of course
Yeah.
this will start at actually the minimum is zero. Zero. So this is between 50K and 100K. So the value that is inside here is probably 75K because that's the middle. So if I go downwards, go upwards, it means I can go between 50 and 100K, something of the
Okay.
sort. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's one value between the two values that have been specified over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something like temperature. If I'm doing like motor vehicle user interface, I'm asking you what temperature do you want? There's a minimum temperature which is 18 degrees. There's maximum temperature which is 24. So you can pick between 18 and 24. One value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're done, you let me know.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Hizo reports zote. Hmm? Milioni tatu. Let me check.
I think now it's like
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's look at another type of input, which is a file input. So sometimes you want to capture data from the end user, not data, but you want to upload files, maybe something like passport photograph, uh, an image, a PDF document. Every time you want to upload data or a file from a user, we'll use the file input. Okay, let me show you how that
Yeah.
works. So for the file input, so I can put a paragraph here, and I can simply say here label, and maybe say passport photo. Right. So for passport photo, I will put here passport photo. Then for me to get the photo, I'll put an input here that is a type file. Then I'll call it passport photo. You can give it a name that you want. Passport photo, like that. So you see when I do that, now it asks me to choose a file. Well, I can put a paragraph here so that it appears on different line. So passport photo, I'm asking you to choose a file. So when I click choose file here, then I can pick a file that I want, maybe something like that. Then you can see the file name is actually loaded. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that one only allows you to select it. Processing it is a different story altogether. We're going to deal with processing much later. For now, we are concerned with how we capture this data from the end user. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you put it. Now, in the event that you want to filter out some file types, as you can see from here, it can give me all the file types. Okay. So I have
Yeah.
Excel files, I have PDF file, I have image files. If I wanted image files only, I would simply say here, accepts, accept rather. Then I'll put the regular expression for accepting image here. I don't have it in my head and I don't need to. So I'll simply say HTML filter input for image. So it'll just tell you the tag here would be, no, that's not what I'm looking for. It should be accept. It should be accept. I think this one, let me check this. It should be accept. No, let me just go back using accept. So yeah, accept is this. So you'll say accept image, then I'll put anything that is an image. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what we do is, let me check this. I think it should be accept image. Yeah, this one, image with dot. So that's what I was looking for. Again, as I've said, I don't need to memorize that. Documentation is always available so that I can be able to know how to filter. So if I wanted to put images only, once I put this, accept image, then with slash, it means so long as it's an image, regardless of the file extension, then when I click on this, you'll see out loud now it has only filtered out for me images only. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I wanted PDF only, I'll put PDF. If I wanted Excel files only, I'll put Excel, and so forth and so forth. That's the beauty of this. Okay. So
Yeah.
pick image,
Yeah.
then I can just pick an image. Then from there, it loads my image directly. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see these are very practical. These are very practical use case scenarios,
Yeah.
and this is how actually our user interfaces are built.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can try that out. So very important, file input has an accept attribute which allows you to be able to filter out which kind of files can be shown when you are allowed the user to accept to upload a file. So it's also some sort of validation for your case.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the essence of you sending doing all this? What is the essence? Why can't you send you something to check again so that you decide to do the same? You see, those kind of realization, you're telling them in a row. You can't populate them in a row. So, very careful. You see, you're not grouping everything. The only thing you're grouping is the I don't idea. But the rest you're just giving them as details. You're not grouping. Because now those bank accounts are different. What happens? How will you populate it? Because this one you force it so that the bank account remains the same. For the sake of you want to make me happy, but when you come to the real one, it's not about finishing whatever you're just doing it to make it right. Yeah, don't do it to really because if you're doing that, I'll come then you will have to do it. So you're just wasting time. So what is the essence of me coming and telling you, okay, we are not supposed to do it like this, then you will be getting. But you see, you're wasting so much time. You don't have time to do the research. You have internet, you have the time to do the research, how to make things come in place. So you are just doing it so that the thing is sent back to you. Just do it right, so once right time. I don't know. The reporting is hard also for me. Okay. Populating that is also becoming a very big issue. So if you're saying you can't generate that, just a report on what you said in the letter. So how hard is it? Why are you using the letter? Because now you're giving me another time. I'm assuming where you are through. Only for me to cross-check to check you are giving your things. Then you're telling me you are through. So are you doing it to finish or are you doing it right? Because you are through according to you, but you need the right thing is done. So what do I do? Because it's like if I tell you to do it, you just give me someone to check you also do it. If I'm sending you something that you check again, you're still doing the thing. So what do I do? Kindly work on it and make sure because I won't come there to start conversating with myself. I don't think I have that. I will come there from the if you know how to maintain and report on the time. When you the report now if you can't know how to design, how to design. Anyway,
Everything
those
it's fine.
It's
okay.
fine, eh? Now, the other thing I just wanted to mention is sometimes if you wanted to, you see, this one is only accepting image files, eh? But I might want to accept only Excel files or PDF files only. So what I'll do here, I'll put something like this. I'll put star XLS, then I put a pipe symbol. Pipe symbol is shift and the key on top of enter. That's straight symbol. There has to be a dot here. Then that is Excel file. Then I put again star dot xlsx. That's also Excel file. Then I can put another pipe. Then I put star dot pdf. Something of that sort. So it means that I'm accepting Excel files, another Excel file. There are two extensions. This is the earlier version of Excel. This is new version of Excel. This is PDF document. So I might want to be able to filter out different file types, and as such, this is how I would apply the filter. Okay. So if I do this,
Yeah.
you'll see I only have Excel and a PDF. I don't have images here. Well, I have images. So why our images are considered okay. Um, let me put Excel. Do we enclose them in single bracket? Let me just check. I think that should have worked. Let me just check. Let me just get the regular expression. It should be dot. Yeah, that should have worked. That should have worked. Let me check. Let me just look at the documentation. Oh, you separate them with commas, not pipe symbols. This is Excel. You separate them with commas, not pipe symbols. You separate with comma, not pipe symbols.
Yeah.
And now you can see I only have Excel and PDF. I don't have images. I don't have any other type of file. Sorry, you only you separate with commas, not pipe symbol. I was using the pipe symbol, but it's actually you separate them with commas. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is if you wanted to filter out any type of file that you want to upload. If it's not an image and it's a specific file type that you're looking for, then simply filter it out like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move
Yeah.
on. Now, the other type of input that you can put are the ones that allow us to do multiple selections. So these ones now are going to provide multiple selection. So when you want to provide multiple selection, and maybe we want the user to have multiple, I'll close this. So when I want users to select, for example, I might give you multiple options and I want you to give me multiple answers. For example, I can ask you, which of the following brands of phones have you had? You might have had about one or two or all of them or none, isn't it? So in
Yeah.
such a scenario, there's an option where I'm giving you, you can select one or more options. And that type of input is called checkbox. So the checkbox input allows you to select multiple options. So let me just put a comment here. Allows multiple selection for multiple options. So I'll give you options, then you can choose one or two or more than that. So a classic example here, I can put a paragraph here, then I can put a label here and ask brands familiar. Brands familiarity, isn't it? Which brand have you used? Isn't it? Or I can ask you for your hobby, something of the sort. Then here, I'll put a paragraph. Then I can put my checkboxes. I'll put input. The type is checkbox. And maybe say Nokia. Nokia. Then I can put a text here, Nokia. Then I can put like that. Well, I don't know why it's putting Nokia in lowercase. Then let me just repeat Samsung. So here I'll put then I'll put Apple. Then I can also have Huawei, right?
Yeah.
So now this is where now labels come into play, as you're going to see. You see, if I click on Nokia here, nothing happens. I have to be specific to the checkbox. Okay,
Yeah.
that is totally not so user friendly. If I click on this text, I'm supposed to also be able to trigger clicking on this into, because now I have to be very specific on checking these items. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works because you can see now I can choose one, I can choose all, or I can choose two, or I can choose none. So in short, I can choose either, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to checkboxes, that's what they do. Now, I want us to use labels here so that now using the labels, we can now be able to pick as appropriate. So what I can do here, instead of just typing Nokia, I'll simply type label Nokia. Then I'll put Nokia inside the label here. Okay.
Yeah.
Here I'll have label. I'm just trying to show you how the user interface is designed so that it's user friendly. Samsung.
Yeah.
So Samsung is responding to the ID of this input type checkbox. So this label is tied to this checkbox. So if I click on this label, it also triggers the click of this input over here. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Okay.
Mm.
So I'll put there. Then I'll put here another label. This one is for Apple. Then I'll take the Apple and put it inside. Visually, you're not going to see any change. Visually,
Yeah.
but functionality wise, it's going to change it.
Yeah.
So you see now what happens if I click on Nokia, you can see Samsung. Now I'm able to trigger the click of these checkboxes. So I can either click on the checkbox itself or I can just click on the text next to it and it is able to trigger that click. That's how you want your users to work, and especially since they could be accessing this from their mobile devices, precision might not be very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that is how we deal with inputs as far as checkboxes are concerned.
Yeah.
So that's what a checkbox is. It allows you to be able to have a tick where you can pick one or more options. So you might have
Yeah.
about all of them, you might not have about any of them, or you might have just about two or just even one, isn't it?
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
how can you make the user only pick one?
Then that's a different kind of an input. That's not a checkbox, because if a user must pick
Oh.
one, then that is not a
Yeah.
checkbox, because a checkbox you can choose one, all, a couple, or none.
Yeah.
But if you have to pick one, like if I'm asking you what is your gender, you either have to
Yeah.
pick male or female or something else, then that's a different kind of input which we're going to discuss next.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. That one you should try out.
Okay.
Sorry. Kitakaribia mail. Hmm?
It's okay.
It's okay, yeah?
Mm.
Now, let's go back to another type of input, exactly what you're asking. So I have a scenario where I want to provide users with a user with or users with multiple inputs, but I only want them to select one value. Okay. So, for
Yeah.
example, I can ask you, how do you want to attend the course? There is full time, there is um, during holidays, and there is evening. You can't attend both.
Yeah.
You can only pick one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So attendance
Yeah.
mode, I'll give you three options, but you can only pick one out of the three
One.
options. Okay? So that
Yeah.
we have what we call radio buttons. So another type of input is radio buttons. So radio buttons is provide users with multiple inputs. Provide user with multiple options, but allow them to select only a single option. Okay? So
Yeah.
a classic example is I'll put a paragraph here, attendance mode. So let's assume we're doing an admission form or a registration form, and you want to ask you this course that you have selected. What is the attendance mode? Or if you're filtering, what is the attendance mode? What attendance mode do you want for this course? So here I can have a label. Well, technically not label, but I can have input. So put a paragraph here, put an input of type radio. Then here, we're going to give them IDs. So for this ID, I'll simply say evening. Let me start with full time, which means you come the whole day. So here I have, okay, in it is supposed to be input of type radio full time. Yeah. So full time. So here again, I'll put full time. Then I'll copy these ones. Then I'll make it evening. So evening. Then the third one, I'll put school based, which means during holidays, right?
Yeah.
So you can see down here, I have three options. I can start with one, which is selected. I can start one with, I can put a value so that one is selected by default. Uh, why is it not selecting that? It should have selected that by default. Anyway, I know why it's not picking it. Now, I'm expecting that if I put it like this, you should be able to select one only, isn't it?
Mm.
So let's try and see. Full time, evening, school based. It is not working as we want it to work, right?
Yeah.
It's only supposed to be one at a time. Now that happens because I've given them three different names. If you want them to behave as mutually exclusive, which means if I select one, the other one is deselected, then I'll have to give them the same name. So this is going to be attendance mode. Okay?
Yeah.
So we give them the same name but different IDs. So if the names are the same, then we can only have one item at a time. So if I pick
Yeah.
this, then I pick this, it deselects the other ones. Okay?
Yeah.
Like that. Okay? I don't know why the
Yeah.
default value is not coming. So let me just say here checked. Yeah, so there'll always be one default which is full time. Full time will always be the default. Otherwise, unless I change, then it will be able to pick as appropriate. So that is radio buttons. So the input type here is radio. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to believe that now that has answered your question. Where if I need at least an answer from the user or one answer from the user, then I use a radio button.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to try that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
It's okay, right? So
Yeah.
now the counterpart of this radio button, it's not an input per se, but let me just explain it anyway. It's not an input, but there's another
Yeah.
companion that you can use also to provide users with multiple options, but then they can only pick one value. It's called select. Okay.
Yeah.
So select
Yeah.
select can actually do what both a checkbox can do and what a radio button can do. Let me just explain the two differences, right? So it's not a type of input, but it allows us to capture data from users. It's called select. Okay. So for
Yeah.
select, what it does is it provides you with a drop-down list where I can pre-populate the value. So for example, I can simply repeat the same thing like attendance mode. So I'll simply say a paragraph, then I'll put here a label for attendance mode 2. Okay, because I already have attendance mode at the top, so attendance mode. So instead of using radio buttons, I'll use select. I'll give it ID attendance mode 2, like that. So attendance mode 2. Now the only difference is that now select will have options inside it. So I'll have here option. I can ask you, I can put a blank value first of all and say choose one. That will be the one that is selected by default. Then I have option, then evening, option, then value, the value that you is associated with that, then the label. So this is evening. So this is the value, this is the label. Okay.
Yeah.
Option, another value, full time. Then I have here full time. Then I also have school based, right?
Yeah.
So school based. Then also I have school based, like that. So you see, if I did that and I come down here, you see now I have attendance mode, then I have choose one, but then I have options that I can be able to select from here. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe if I put a break here just to, if I put a break there, just to break it down, then put other breaks down here. You can see now I have attendance mode where I can pick evening, full base, or I can pick either of one of these values. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to have something like this, I can also use it with something like this. So I'll just repeat this and state if I wanted to select multiple values, I'll simply say these ones were brand familiarity to familiar brands. So familiar brands here, I'll put that and that. So here I can have choose one, then I have Huawei or Huawei as they call it, Nokia, Samsung, Apple, then maybe Apple. So I have here Huawei, Nokia, Samsung, or Apple. Now, here is still going to give me, okay, this will be familiar brands, like that. So here are familiar brands, and you can see I can only pick one at a time. If I want to select multiple, what I will do here is I'll change this select and I'll say here multiple, like that. That multiple, when I come here, you can see now it has changed. I can pick this or this or this. Now I have to hold control or shift if I want to select multiple values. So control so that when I click, it selects and deselects. If I pick shift and I pick the first one and hold shift and click the last one, are not sorry, if I select the first one, then I hold shift and select the last one, it selects everything in between as you can see. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can also
Yeah.
use select with multiple options set if you wanted to select more than one option. So there is the option of one element, Then there is multiple elements. So select here, I just put a label, select single element, single item. Then here I have select multiple items, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. You want to try that out? Or I can just
Yeah.
carry on?
Carry on. I'll do it later.
No problem. So now the other thing that is left for us is there's another thing called text area. So text area, this should be 13, right? 12.
Yeah. 12.
Text area. Now there's some scenarios where you can see when I have this input like text or text, I can only type one line at a time, right? I cannot type a lot of things. So there are some scenarios where I want to type a lot of things. So maybe I want to ask you, tell me about yourself, right? So when you tell me about yourself,
Yeah.
you're going to type a lot of things. You're going to tell me about what you like, where you went to school, how you grew up, and that kind of a thing, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if I just ask you, tell me about yourself, and I give you a feel like this, it feels a bit restrictive because you cannot be as expressive as you would possibly want. Visually, that is, of course, practically and visually, yes, it will look very restrictive, but technically, it's actually possible to capture that data. Okay, but again, we also want to present a user interface to the user, something that they feel is not as restrictive as such. So with this kind of a scenario, what we do is we just use something like a text area, so to give somebody a much wider space where they can be able to type in as much as possible. Okay, so I'll put a paragraph here, and I'll ask label and about you, about you. So tell us about yourself. I can ask you that, isn't it? So here, I'm simply going to say a text area, and I'll give it an ID of about you. Then I'll just say about you like that. So if I come down here, you can see, well, maybe let me put a paragraph here. And the good thing with this is I can expand it.
Niende kwa ceiling.
Okay? Then I can say,
Yeah.
I am a 24-year-old.
That's it.
I have a diploma in IT. I am passionate about open source. And I can go on and on. So you can see here, I can type as much as I possibly want,
Oh,
as opposed to
yeah.
this one where I only type one line at a time. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a text area. And the good thing is
Yeah.
that you can also change the number of rows. If I want rows to be many, so I'll say I want 5 rows. So you can see by default it's going to have 5 rows. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 rows by default. And if I want multiple columns, maybe say I want 30 columns, I can come here and say I want 30 columns or 40 columns. Makes it very, very wide, right? So you can
Yeah.
see that is 40 columns wide. So you get the idea. So when it comes to
Yeah.
text area, it's more flexible when it comes to capturing a lot of data. Like for example, you are creating an email client and you want somebody to type an email to somebody. You'll give them a place where they can be able to type as much as possible, isn't it? And this is where
Yeah.
now text area comes into play. Right?
Yeah.
So the next thing, we're still on inputs. I divulged a bit and jumped to select and text area, but it's because
Yeah.
I want to move in the order of how you use these tools. So I wanted to save the buttons for the last because usually the buttons are the last things that we discuss on our input. Okay? So
Yeah.
let's talk about buttons. We have buttons and we have inputs that are of type submit. So 13, let's first of all deal with inputs that are of type submit and reset. Okay?
Yeah.
So what submit does is it picks the content of your form and sends it over to wherever it's supposed to be processed. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll explain that. Reset, on the other hand, clears your form automatically. Let's start with reset. So I'll simply say here, put a paragraph just to create a visual space down here. We don't, by the way, we don't need to use these paragraphs. When you start doing styling, I'm not going to use these paragraphs, but rather I'm going to use other things to make this thing look nicer. For now, because I am trying to avoid styling, that's why I'm breaking them in paragraphs so that they appear on independent lines. Okay?
Yeah.
So for submit, I'll have an input of type. Let me start with reset. I have an input of type reset. Then I'll give it an ID of say clear form. Then I'll type some text on it. The text I want to type on it is clear form, like that. So when I come down here, I have clear form here. What I want you to observe is this. Let me put some values here. Richard, Nyango, put some complex password, and some complex password, and some complex telephone number, and some pieces, and I pick a date, and I pick an email address, and I pick a different color, and I pick a value here, and I choose a file. You know, I'm just trying to fill
Yeah.
in the form like that. Then I pick that, and this is awesome. Let me try again. So I have literally filled in the forms, as you can see. Now, when I click on this clear form, it should automatically clear each and every field in this form. Observe this, including the file input here. So when I say clear, you can see everything is reset.
Reset.
That's what clear does. Eh?
Okay.
Now, when you're starting to talk about the form, we said a form has two properties that are very important. One of them is the action. The other one is the method. The action is where the form is going to be sent. So when I put a hash like this, it means the form is going to be sent to itself. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
that's important because we are going to observe the URL address over here. Then you'll see what happens up here. Okay. So let me put an input type of submit down here. So I want to say process, isn't it? So I'll have an input of type submit down here. Then I'll give it an ID of save records. Then the value is save records, what I want displayed on it. So I'll save records over here. Now it's important for us to note that the form the form um, the form method, default method is get. What get does is it will take all the inputs you have on your form and append on the URL, then send it over to the server for processing. Okay, so all the values that you've
Mm.
attached, that you have typed on your form, it will take all those values, make it part of the URL, then send it over to where it's supposed to be processed. Okay, that is the default
Yeah.
behavior. Okay, let's see how that works
Yeah.
out. So since you have put here submit, and the form, we have put an attribute here, action, which is sent to yourself. We have not defined the method, so it means it's going to use the get method, okay? Which means assemble all the inputs that the user has typed, then make it part of the URL, then send it over to where it's supposed to be processed. That's what it means, right?
Yeah.
So here I'll put Richard. I might not put all the values, just for purpose of demonstration. Well, let me put all the values so that you see what they look like. Then I need 5 of these, and I need this date of birth, and student is abc at gmail.com. I'll put a color, maybe say that. Then budget, I change to that. I put a file here, like that. I'll pick Nokia and Huawei, and I'll pick school-based, and I'll pick here full-time, and I'll pick here Huawei and Samsung, and I'll say this is awesome. Let's try again. Now I want you to observe up here, this URL up here, this part, right? So when I click
Yeah.
on save, you can see it has taken all the data that I had and then appended. Username is Richard, first name is Django, your password is this, and it goes on and on. So all the values that I had specified have been appended as part of the URL and they have been sent over to this form itself. Now I'm talking about, for now, we're talking about um, managing the content. We're going to discuss processing much later. Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I'm able to capture all this data, then I can send over this data from the URL. So that's the default method. It's called the get method. Now, if I wanted, this is not secure. So if I was doing something like a login form, I don't want passwords appearing here. As you can see here, I have my password here, right? So
Yeah.
when I am doing secure things or I'm uploading images or things like that, I don't want this kind of behavior because it's not secure and it is also limited by the kind of data that it can send over to the server. So in that way, for me to be able to achieve that, instead of using the get method, I'll use the post method. So the get is default. So method here, if I don't provide it, it is get. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I don't provide it, it's get. But I don't want to use get, I want to use post. Now, what post does is it will pick the data that I have here, assemble it elsewhere, then send it behind the scenes. Okay? So what I want us to do is I'll right click. I want us to see how that behavior works out. So I'll minimize this. I will right click on my browser. I will go to inspect. Then um, I'll come to network. So right now you can see there is nothing on my network, right? So my network is blank. So let's observe this. Let me put here Richard Yango. Username complex password is something like that. Confirm password is something like that. Mobile number is then how many pieces? 10. Date of birth I can pick from here. Maybe say I want a lighter year like 2017 January 10th. The color here I want is that. I want it to be there. Passport photo I want to pick this one. Which brands? Nokia, Samsung, Apple. Then school based. Attendance mode I also pick. Then I'll pick this too. Then I'll say this is awesome. Sent in the background. So in short, it's not added to the browser, but it creates what we call a payload, then sends over that payload. Now, I want you to observe this. I want you to observe this. I want you to observe this this network window over here. When I click
Uh,
on save, yes,
Mr. Richard,
yes,
I it's not presenting.
it's not presenting.
Yeah.
All right, okay. I want to believe now it's presenting.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, you fill in the details over here. Once you fill in the details, I want you to observe what happens on the network over here. So the only thing I did is just to fill in the details. Okay. So when I click on save record, you can see it processes the file, but you can see this now it tells me the page isn't working because well, I'm using a local server here, so it's a bit of a challenge with it. But again, you can see on the payload over here, you can see the data is actually sent over. Username is Richard, first name, your password, and all those things, including the files that I sent. So, passport photo, you can see it's actually a file that was sent over. Color, you can see a color has been sent over and stuff like that. So, if you're going to be dealing with a lot of data, you want to securely send data back and forth, then the post method would be the method that you set for purposes of sharing your data with the server or the processing engine. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, that is how you use submit and reset. But also, you have options of putting buttons, default buttons. So here I can have something like button, give it an ID of maybe say my button. Then you can give it a label. I can simply say maybe say save for later, something of that sort. Now, well, I have to dispose of this. then reshare it. So you can see that one now I have a button. Now this one doesn't do anything, so to speak. That button shouldn't do anything. Well, I can write JavaScript for it so that now I am able to process that data whenever I click my button. So I have clear, I have reset, I have submit, then I have just a regular button over here for me to be able to perform other things that I might want to do other than submitting or resetting. Maybe I want to validate something. Maybe I want to, uh, uh, ask the user to copy something to a different place or something of the sort. So these buttons would help me achieve certain those kind of things. Okay,
Yeah.
that is a mouthful. I know that's a lot for one day,
Yeah.
but generally that's how forms work. I don't know if you have any question you can ask. Then I can probably let you go. We meet again tomorrow.
For now, I think I've understood.
You've understood,
I'll
eh?
just go. I'll just go and recap everything, and then I'll see what to do.
That's awesome. So now what I would want you to do here is create for me a vehicle capture form. Assume you are selling motor vehicles. You want
Yeah.
to create a form that allows your user to accept the details of the vehicle that is being sold. How do you achieve that? So
Okay.
I want you to come up with the fields. What fields, first of all, are you coming up with? There is the brand, there is the model, there is the engine rating, there is the mileage, there is the year of manufacture, there is the color. There are descriptions, there are options it has. Does it have power steering? Does it have four-wheel drive? How many seats
Yeah.
does it have? And all that kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine that. Try to capture as much detail as possible. Then you can use that for purposes of this particular practice.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, if there's no question, I think we can take a break at that. We'll meet again tomorrow. I will share this video shortly.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, you too.